Not a matter of if, but when crisis will rock your world. I'm Roshini Rajkumar, crisis strategist, licensed attorney, and host of The Crisis Files. In each case file, we explore hot topics to help you avoid the collision course to crisis. The Crisis Files wellness contributor is back in the studio. Jamie Martin is editor-in-chief of Experience Life magazine and co-host of the Lifetime Talks podcast. When you hear the word gossip, you usually expect something juicy or forbidden, right? But do these info trails actually help us? Jamie is here for the case file I call Good Gossip. All right, Jamie, first of all, give us the definition of gossip.
Yes. So gossip, by definition, really is the exchange of personal information when a third party is absent. So it's something that's about somebody else who's not in the space when you're having the conversation.
So even if I said to you, Jamie, have to tell you, my neighbor's husband passed away, that would be called gossip.
Technically, right? It's not really an exchange of information that's going to hurt anybody. It's a passing of information. But I think where gossip gets confused is we often associate it directly, almost immediately upon hearing the word, with something negative. And there's some research that's been done out of Stanford by a professor named Michelle Gelfand, who really has focused on how can gossip actually be good for us and help support our communities in a positive way.
So give us some examples of some of that good gossip, which is the name of our case file today.
Right. So examples of good gossip are, let's say somebody that is suffering or having a problem. A way that we might gossip is to kind of share that they're suffering and what can we do about it? How can we help that person or support them through the challenge that they're having? That's one example. Or let's say that someone is you heard this bit of information that's really positive. Somebody had a great thing happen for them in their life, and you're sharing that with somebody else. That's a great way to share. It builds reputation. It often helps build the relationship, and it maybe sets a positive example of what that person could contribute to that other person's life and experience as well.
All right. No, that sounds great. But we also this topic wouldn't be on the Crisis Files if there wasn't a danger side to it.
Right.
So let's try to help people avoid that collision course to crisis. When it comes to gossip, one of the things you suggest and the people your reporters interviewed suggest is sticking to the facts.
Absolutely. I mean, we want any information that is being shared to be accurate. We're kind of living in a time where there's a lot of misinformation out there. It's easy to misconstrue details about a story. So how can we make sure that when we're passing something along to someone else about someone who's not present, that we know for sure that it's fact and not something that we've just heard or is being passed along as true gossip in the negative sense?
What are some of the ways that, as you dug into this topic in Experience Life magazine, where it can really be harmful when facts are tossed aside or people don't double check for accuracy?
Well, I mean, it can damage somebody's reputation if something is truly not accurate. If it's going to be something that you're passing along, you're not for sure about it, and it's wrong, and that information continues to spread about that person. Maybe it's at work. You heard something there. That could have a really detrimental effect to that person in the workspace and affect, potentially what's next for them in that space. That's one example. But it really can also just hurt the individual, and it could affect their self-confidence and all those other pieces of their health and well-being too. When somebody's on the receiving end of being gossiped about, it creates a kind of a sense of self-awareness, can create self-consciousness. On the other end, it can also potentially push somebody to change behaviors and inform their actions, so they're not the subject going forward, potentially.
One area that really has opened up how gossip of any kind, good and bad, gets conveyed and transferred and really goes viral are social media platforms.
Yes.
So now that we know what we know, platforms like what used to be called Twitter are now called X. That used to be my favorite social media platform, but it's really fallen out of favor with a lot of business types. What can we know now about those effects, those widening circles, when social media is at play? We've had more than a decade to look at this phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, I think social media is a really tricky space no matter what, because people will put information out there. Maybe even the third party that you're talking about will put information out there. But that doesn't necessarily mean because it's public that it's for you to then share as well. So I think there's a discernment that has to happen in terms of questioning, is this something that's right for me to share and pass along or not? And And it means we all need to stop and pause and ask ourselves some questions. Is this mine to share? It's just as important for us to know when not to share as when to share and when it's going to be harmful or hurtful for somebody. I think the thing that happens when we pass on social media is there's a greater risk for judgment and additional, people being judged in ways that they maybe didn't expect because of how widespread the information can become. If your connections on social media are much broader than that individual who initially shared it, it has wide-reaching effects that could, again, be detrimental to that individual. So why don't we take a moment and pause and decide, is this really mine to share? Or is this something that I can keep for me for now? And maybe down the road you have a conversation with that individual to better understand them.
I love that question. Is this really mine to share?
Yes.
And that's so important. And I also love the term discernment. We individually, whether we're the one posting it originally, sharing something we've seen either on social media or verbally, there are several points of discernment where we can stop and ask, is this appropriate? Is this mine to share? And even if it is mine to share, should I share it? I mean, all of those questions that really are important and come to mind and should be and could be really helpful to prevent bad gossip and bad results.
Absolutely. I think the other thing to think about are even just your values. Like, where does this align with my personal values in terms of how I relate to people? I mean, the thing about good gossip is it actually can help build healthier relationships. It can promote collaboration. It can strengthen our sense of trust in somebody. And if we're the one who's passing something along that's inaccurate, that breaks the trust for us. We're potentially hurting ourselves as well. So how do we take that moment to say, is this truly in alignment with my own values and how I want to show up in the world? Am I being trustworthy myself? Am I being authentic? And is this how I want to approach relationships in my life or as I pass information along?
I think what's also interesting is I hear you go through those very logical but also respectful questions. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like back in kindergarten when we were taught, don't say something unless you have something nice to say, essentially.
Absolutely.
And it really does stay with us for life into adulthood and beyond, is how can we be much more respectful? How can we discern? How can we ask those questions of ourselves? Let's talk a little bit about the consequences. So there have been a lot of things lately in the world of news and current events that have had their viral moments. Mm-hmm. In the kickoff to season 4, my editorial, Kiss Camp Slam, I talk about the CEO and the chief people officer of Astronomer, and they were caught canoodling on a big screen at a Coldplay concert. Now, that's something that they weren't hiding. It got caught on a big screen, and it went viral around the globe. Mm-hmm. That's a hard one, Jamie, to not talk about. I talked about it in my editorial, trying to teach some lessons, but still, there are moments of, whoa, there's a lot of judgment that we're all doing on that particular situation.
Mm-hmm. I think the thing is there's a lot of speculation that's happening versus actual, again, going back to those facts. So what were the facts around that? It was a public event. It was at a Coldplay concert. There was a photo taken in a public venue, right? Like, what the circumstances were behind that, none of us really knew. But again, there are going to be consequences in this viral social world that we live in. And that's just what we have to kind of accept. But I guess the thing that we all have the ability to do is pause and say, what am I speculating about? And there were some really, there were some funny memes and different things that came out speculating about it. But again, is it in the line? I mean, that those individuals in that, there was a lot of damage that was done there, right? And that was not really, I don't think, by what was spread about them, but more about the actions in and of themselves. So I think that's a moment of pause that we all had to have and be grateful it's not ourselves. And how would I handle a situation like that differently myself? Like, if I were in those shoes, what would I do?
It's hard to think any of the facts got jumbled when you think about what we did see on that big screen.
Right.
I mean, that big screen shot was not doctored in any way. That was there. And so something like that was happening. Well, it's always good to know. Well, you are the wellness contributor of our show. What are some wellness tips now that we know so many of the repercussions that happen from all kinds of gossip, from social media? What are your overall general? It's a great time to check in with you for those wellness tips.
In general, or just tied to this topic?
Well, as we talk about some of these social media, some of this topic of gossip, and how can we stay and keep, as my husband would say, keep our side of the street clean.
Yeah, I think it comes back to knowing yourself. I think, what do you stand for? How do you want to show up in the world? How do you want to relate to others is the most important thing. If you're not being authentic to yourself, if you're not taking a moment to question your motivation, you're acting reactively versus proactively, there's a risk of that gossip damaging you as well. So how do we just take that moment to pause, to reconnect to who we are, know who we are in this space, and then decide how we want to pass information along? And is it to the benefit of other people versus potentially detrimental? How can we help and support and lift people up rather than tear them down, which is so much of what we're seeing in the social space. So how can we flip that script to do better, to create more good collectively?
Love it. Really, really great advice, as she always has for us. Thank you so much for being with us. Follow Jamie on Instagram at Jamie Martin EL. Check out experiencelife.com for the latest in health and wellness. Today's case file is powered by Mall of America. Mall of America. Great shopping. A dazzling and dizzying variety of attractions and restaurants. Did you realize Mall of America also hosts hundreds of events each year? Everything from high-fashion runway shows to visits from the hottest musicians. Pop-up celebrations ahead of movie premieres, charity-related walks, and holiday-themed experiences. You never know what you will find at our mall. For upcoming events and happenings, check out mallofamerica.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to The Crisis Files on your platform of choice. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram at The Crisis Files. Visit thecrisisfiles.com for all 4 seasons of the show. I'm Roshini Rajkumar. Join me next time on The Crisis Files.